let's move over to the Eastern Conference. I actually got a game going on right now with the Pacers and your Milwaukee Bucks. Right now, they're down 22-12. I'm not going to do in-game commentary, but we'll get to that in just a second here. As this series had a pretty interesting start over the weekend. Dame time was absolutely on fire. Like, Damian Lillard was crazy in the first half. Didn't exist in the second half, but it was fine because the Bucks handily beat the Pacers without Giannis. And then Pascal Siakam decided he was going to be God in game 2. Drops darn near 40 on your Milwaukee Bucks. And now the series tied with right now the Pacers leading game 3. I don't even know what to say. Like, the playoffs, we were just talking about in the Western Conference video, like, it's been really competitive and, like, really weird and, like, uncompetitive at the same time. It's like, I don't get how you can just have these crazy swings from game to game like this. But, from your perspective as a Bucks fan, again, Giannis, star player, MVP type guy, he's out. That's going to have a big effect on the series, you would think. In game 1, they were fine without him. Game 2, they probably wish they had him. Game 3, that's pending. So, like, how are you kind of feeling, in the moment right now about this series?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd like to have Giannis back, right? I think that in game 1 we did a really good job of kind of handling the issues that we had against the Pacers in the regular season, right? They beat us 4-1 in the regular season. One of those games, the reason it was 5 because we played in the in-season tournament. And that was all Tyrese Haliburton. We've handled that. We didn't have Pat Bev when we played last time. We have had Pat Bev at this time, and Haliburton has not had a good time going against Patrick Beverley or Pat Connaughton. He can't beat Pat, apparently. I think Dame has also been a pretty good defensive matchup. We've just held Haliburton down, and that has been good. And in game 1, Pascal also had a good game, but it just didn't matter as much because they couldn't really get anything going. And key point, the Bucks, obviously Dame had 35 in the first half. The rest of the Bucks were hitting shots. In the second half, when Dame hit no shots, Chris, lit up. He finished with 23. Bobby Portis finished with 15 and 11. Just a good game from those guys. Brook didn't do horrible. And you get a good game 1 win. In game 2, we get a completely new problem with the Pacers, and that's Pascal Siakam. And we don't have anybody to defend him right now, apparently. Brook Lopez should be a good option, but I get it. He's got to be on Turner for some points. And so we just don't have like a good athletic forward to handle Siakam without Giannis in the game. So he gets 40 in game 2 and contributes to multiple major runs. But in those runs, the Bucks would do things like score 8 in a row to make it almost a tie game, and then out of nowhere just miss every shot for the next 3 minutes while the Pacers got everything they wanted. And so it's just been you can't win a game if your players can't shoot. It's just a problem. Jay Crowder, almost all of his minutes have been empty minutes where he just kind of run around, throws up a few threes that get rebounded by the Pacers, and then they score off of those rebounds. Not ideal. Chris Middleton, not so great tonight. Did have a decent game in game 2, but again, it's just certain times that things get too cold. Brook Lopez hit 6 threes in game 2, which is great, but he also gave up just as many to Miles Turner because somehow, no matter if it's Mike Budenholzer or Doc Rivers or who the roster is, we cannot defend the 3-point line. Teams just shoot threes at will against us, except for in game 1. I don't know how we lost it. I'm not going to panic too much if they do lose game 3 and go down 2-1. I think that this Pacers team is one that even without Giannis we can beat. I just think that the Bucks have got to get it together and hit their shots, kind of find a little rhythm. Then the Pacers aren't like massively outplaying us at all times. We just can't shoot to answer, and we can't stay in line with them. The one thing we had over them is that we're better defensively than them, and obviously they're probably a little more efficient offensively than us. And that has been killing us because our defense has fallen apart at certain times, and then on top of that, we can't equal them in shooting. So it's been rough. I'm not going to panic too much. I think when we hired Doc Rivers as our coach, I put away all hopes of panic in the playoffs because you can't you can't get your hopes too high. I don't hate Doc Rivers. I think he's a fine coach. But playoffs are scary with him at the helm, and so I'm just not gonna panic too much on having that guy leading our team. So hopefully Giannis comes back. Hopefully Chris stays healthy. He had a little ankle issue in game 2, but he's out there tonight. And hopefully we're able to stay alive and hopefully get back to Milwaukee with a lead. That'd be great. At the worst, hopefully we get back to Milwaukee tied 2-2 if necessary. So yeah. From there,
this doesn't make any sense. Another one.
Miami and Boston. Miami without Jimmy Butler are tied 1-1. Yeah. So this Miami team or this Boston team is massively better than this Miami team for sure, roster wise, talent wise. That's no hate to the Miami Heat team. I would say it was probably the same last year, and then the Heat were still able to win. So obviously, no hate to the Heat team. But the big difference is there's no playoff Jimmy right now. And in Game 1, that showed. The Celtics had multiple times where they were up like 30. I mean, they win by 20. It was not a contest. The Celtics came out. Mr. Kristaps Porzingis got everything he wanted. Hit every three he could want. Defensively, they were locked in. The pressure was high. It was good. Tatum and Brown play well. Porzingis obviously played amazing in that game. Then we get to Game 2, and in the most Heat fashion, they hit a franchise record for threes in a playoff game, hitting 23 threes, and still only win by 10. But like, Kristaps isn't able to get it going. Drew Holiday has a classic Bucks playoff game where he shoots like 2 for 12. I just don't really fully understand what this Heat team is and how they're able to do things like this. But they were able to snuff out the Celtics in Boston in Game 2 without Jimmy, which makes this really interesting. Now they get to go play 2 in Miami, and we know that the Heat have some sort of like dark sorcery behind them sometimes in the playoffs. Apparently even without Jimmy. So I think this is cool. This is really fun. I don't really want to face either of these teams, so this is a lose-lose as a Bucks fan. We haven't had great history with either of these two in the past few years, except for sweeping the Heat and our en route to our championship in 2021. But just for the sake of basketball, I think this is really fun to watch a Tyler Hero-led offense just like torch the Celtics in Boston in Game 2 out of nowhere. It's just really weird. It's really crazy. Obviously, the Heat aren't going to hit 23 threes every game. I'm not about to hit the perk statement where he said like they could shoot 100% every game and they'd still get swept. Obviously not. Clearly not. That got put to bed pretty quickly. So yeah, this has been fun. A very enjoyable series so far. Not because the first game was super entertaining, but just because of the way they were able to like turn it around in Game 2 and get the usual Miami dark sorcery to get a 10-point win in Boston and bring it back to Miami with some confidence. So I think we are pretty much confirmed that Jimmy's not coming back. So we got to see if this Jimmy-less Heat team can keep that up and see if they can take it to 7. I don't expect them to win this series regardless of that, but it would be insane if they're able to do that without Jimmy Butler. And that's no hate to Bam or Tyler or Caleb Martin or the rest of those guys, but no Jimmy, no Terry Rozier, no Josh Richardson for the defensive aspect. This is just a really gutted Heat team, and I can't see them winning, but I can see them making this really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I just want to interject here. We have this Pacers Bucks game up right now, and it looks like Dame is like pretty hurt. He was darn near triple team there, got this crazy layup, and he went down kind of bad on his leg, and he's holding his like knee-ish area, looking like it's bad. And he just tried to hop off and get to the bench. So probably want to keep an eye on that, especially for you as a Bucks fan there.
Yeah.
But with Miami, look, I don't think that they've, like you said, they did something that was so crazy. Like it's only been done a few times in NBA history. Like I don't think they've exposed Boston or they've gotten the blueprint to beat Boston. Like if you have to do something crazy like that to be able to win, and then like you said, they only won by 10. Like they're not going to consistently do this every single game. And that's just pertaining to this team. If they had Jimmy Butler, things would be different, right? You could say, look at last year, look at the times they played in the past. Like, if they had Jimmy Butler in this series fully healthy and they ran it back, even against a much better Boston Celtics team this year, I would be fine saying, hey, the Heat, they had a chance, they might have the Celtics number. But based off of it's just one single game, like I'm not going to go that far. I still think this ends in no more than 6. I truly was expecting a sweep. Given that Jimmy was out and given that this is a much better Boston team, but I got to give them all the credit in the world for being able to get back to Miami. Not being down 0-2, Because if you go down 0-2, like even if it is at home, pretty hard to overcome that. But now it's 1-1. It's really a series, but I expect the Celtics to come back in game 3, at least get a win, at least win one of these 2 games. You expect to win 2 in a row, and try to finish that thing back up in Boston. But if for whatever reason, I'll say this: if the Heat win one of these 2 games and they head back to Boston 2-2, I don't know what else to say. Like, I mean, it might be some Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley magic down there. They might have something that just for whatever reason, the Celtics, with a team that has Kristaps Porzingis, like you said, that has Drew Holiday, who, again, might have those Bucks kind of moments that he did before. You add those guys to your team, you only got better this year. You're the best team in the league by far. There should be no issue, with the Celtics finishing this series out over the next few games. But if the Heat, if they win this next one of these next 2 games, I'll give them a chance. Now, the Sixers and the Knicks, this one probably the best series to watch so far, I would say. Out of all the series so far, I think this is probably the most fun. Joel Embiid, his situation, like, that's insane. You said that the doctors for the Sixers should be arrested. They should be put under the jail. I don't know if I would go, like, I'm not going to say put him in a chair, but man literally is battling Bell's palsy right now. That's wild. Like, you could see clips like during the game of like his eye and everything. That's crazy. The fact that he did it while dropping 50 points, like, to keep them from going down 0-3 in this series, in a series I still think the Knicks will win. Impressive. With that being said, game 1, like, Josh Hart, that last quarter for him was absolute cinema. I mean, and they kept talking over and over throughout the last quarter, like, oh, he'll keep taking those threes, even if he won't make them, blah, blah, blah. And he started to make them, and he made them, and he made them. And he played exceptionally well at the end of the game. Like, that was great TV, honestly. In the game 2, they came back out, got the win again. Like, if you're going to need Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey is playing well as well, so I'm not going to discount that. But if you're going to need Joel Embiid, who struggling with Bell's palsy, struggling with his injury, like, if you're going to need him to come out and score 40 to win this by 10, 11, Sixers, they're just not going to win this series, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate, because for the most part, Joel Embiid, like, outside of the injury, was playing exceptionally well. So for them to fall down the way they did, and then he comes back, but he's still battling his injury, it's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, the Knicks, Jalen Brunson's a great player. He's a top star. But for the Knicks to be this good without, like, that super upper echelon type guy, like a Joel Embiid, I got to give them the props. So I'm not going to blame the Sixers, 2-1 deficit on the fact that Joel Embiid's battling injury. Knicks are just playing that well.
Yeah, I think their defensive intensity has been really high, even in that loss yesterday. They're pretty tough on defense. It's a tough team to go through. I mean, we saw that last year in their first round. They made it really, really tough for the Cavaliers, and they have not done anything different with the Sixers. Josh Hart has been amazing. He has been essentially leading them through the playoffs. Brunson's leading them and scoring and everything right now. But, like, Josh Hart has been the spark of that series so far. I mean, his rebounding as like one of the shortest people on the court has been exceptional. His scoring has been good. He's been a really good defender. You could argue that the Sixers should have taken game 2 because of all the stuff that happened at the end of the game. So this could be a 2-1 swing in a different direction. But I think that the Knicks are still a super resilient team. They played really, really good defense, and I think that the home court advantage of Madison Square Garden is really tough when the Knicks are a really good team. It's a bad combination. The Sixers, I don't think, handle physical basketball very well. I think that if the Knicks had Julius Randle right now, this would be really bad because people like Josh Hart are giving Tobias Harris some physical issues. So put that as Randle instead, and I think that Tobias Harris is, like, dead. But I mean, ultimately, I think this could be a really good series. I mean, this one could go far if the Sixers are able to grab the other one in Philly. It'll be tough. The one they got last night was tough, and now the Knicks are probably going to be supercharged with anger after all of the, Joel Embiid flagrant foul kind of stuff going on. This one has been riddled with referee anger issues. Most of them, I'd say, pretty valid as well. I mean, the Sixers got all but confirmed in the in game 2 that the refs messed that one up. And last night, I think there's no question about Joel Embiid's foul being a little too far. It could have easily been a flagrant 2. So a lot riding on the emotions of the series. I think with that in mind, that the Sixers are maybe not in for a great time. I think the Knicks probably come out of the series, which I know sounds crazy to be so up in the air because, again, 2 versus 7. But the Sixers team wouldn't be a 7 seed if Embiid didn't miss so much time with that injury. He is playing on like a bum leg with some other medical issues because of the medicines they're giving him. But I think that makes this competitive. I think it go to 6 or 7. I do think the Knicks will come out of this one. Fun, really tough series. Favorite one so far for sure. They've played the most competitive basketball through each of the 3 games, without a doubt. And so, our last series is the Cavaliers and the Magic. I just talked about the Cavaliers having kind of a physical toughness issue against the Knicks last year. They did not have that issue in the first 2 games against the Magic. I mean, they had some issues with like Mo Wagner and Franz, kind of making it a little tough physically, but they still came out and got a 97-83 victory. They turned it around again and got a 96-86 victory. For all of the credits to the Magic defense, in those first 2 games, they could not get their offense going. And so, I mean, they held the Cavs to under 100 in both games. They played good defense, but they themselves could not score very well and could not get it going. Then out of nowhere, they go to Orlando. Their defense stays good, right? So you got the Cavs 97 and the 96. And then they drop them to only scoring 83 points as the Cavs just cannot get it going. That's maybe not the most shocking part, right? This has already been a low-scoring thing. The Magic go from scoring 83 and 86 to putting up 121, winning with almost a 40-point victory margin. Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero go crazy. They play like they haven't played at all like that in the playoffs. I mean, Paolo has been decent, but I mean, it hasn't been like that.
Yeah.
That defense shined through, and that offense just like erupted. Very interesting. I don't have a whole lot to say on this series analytically. I think that the Magic's offense has been awful in the first 2 games, and they somehow got like supercharged by going to Orlando, and that's generally all that changed. Their defense stayed exactly the same. They clamped them up a little bit more than the other games, obviously, because they scored 13 or 14 less. But their offense like went nuclear out of nowhere, and they put up one of the highest point totals in the playoffs so far after scoring the 2 lowest back to back.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same, like when you look at game 1, like you remember when Cleveland came out and they made like 100 like threes in a row to start, and then after that, like couldn't make a single thing. If at some point in that little spell there, if Orlando could have capitalized, put up more offense, anything comparable to what they did in game 3, we might be having a different discussion right now. It might be a 2-1 series the other way. But instead, they themselves couldn't score really much anything. Like, I don't really get it how they can just go from scoring 83 themselves in game 1. Holding the Cavs at 83, obviously, like you said, that's a big deal just in general. Like holding a team to sub 100 in today's NBA, pretty good. Holding the team to almost below 80, like that's crazy. So to go from that, their defense pretty much stays the same, like you said, a little bit better in game 3. But to then have the offensive explosion in game 3 that they had, I don't think they'll sustain it. So I think this is kind of just one of those scenarios where, okay, clearly the better team is Cleveland in the series so far because they can actually put points on the board consistently. Look, at the end of the day, the 4 and 5 series is generally supposed to be the most competitive, you would think. And based off after game 1, I was like, look, Magic are probably going to be swept. Like we were talking about this Saturday, when first game Saturday, and I was just sitting here like they're probably done. If they're going to play like that in every single game, they're probably going to get swept. I just think it's a lot more likely, even if the defense stays as good as it's been. There's no way that they're going to have another offensive explosion like that. Like Banchero might put up 30, that's fine, but I think overall Orlando's not going to score that much. I don't think Cleveland's going to have as much trouble on offense as it did in game 3. So To me, I think this is just one of those outlier kind of games. Cleveland should probably win the next 2 games, get them out in 5, and it would be a lot more reflective of what we saw in game 1 than what we saw in game 3.